Okay, ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're tackling this whole Trump-Putin thing, and we're looking at this David Rothkopf piece. Trump having Putin on speed dial isn't funny, it's terrifying.
Right.
And it's an opinion piece, so just throwing that out there, we're gonna, we're digging into his perspective here.
Yeah, definitely important to keep that in mind as we unpack all this.
Okay, so Rothkopf, he comes out swinging right.
Yeah.
He starts with this big revelation from the new Woodward book saying Trump, even after leaving office, was supposedly having these regular phone chats with Putin.
Yeah, from Mar-a-Lago, no less. The same place where all those classified documents were.
Oh, right. Like, come on.
Yeah, and that's where this whole national security concern really starts to rear its head.
Mm.
Because these weren't just like, hey, how are you? Calls.
Yeah. Right.
We're talking about a time when things between the U.S. and Russia were already incredibly tense.
For sure.
And Rothkopf suggesting that even if Trump didn't mean to, he could have let something slip,
Yeah, especially with his track record.
Exactly. And it's not just what they might have talked about on those calls, but Rothkopf is implying that Putin might be returning the favor now.
Okay, how so?
Well, he uses this phrase, let me get it right, flooding our electorate with toxic disinformation
Wow.
to try and help Trump's campaign.
So you're talking about potential foreign interference in our election.
Exactly, which is a whole other thing.
Right. Huge.
Yeah, and this isn't even a new concern. Intelligence agencies have been worried about this for a while, but this just adds a whole other layer to it, especially if Trump ends up back in the Oval Office.
Okay, hold on, because then there's the whole COVID test thing.
Oh, yeah?
Woodward claims that Trump sent COVID tests to Putin when Americans were having trouble getting them.
Yeah, during the peak of the pandemic, no less.
I don't even know what to say to that.
It is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about the nature of their relationship.
Right.
Like, this wasn't just about international politics anymore. It seems personal and potentially putting personal favors above the needs of the American people.
Yeah.
At least that's the implication.
You have to wonder what was going on in his head.
Right. What was he thinking? And that's something Rothkopf really goes after in his piece. He's not holding back, calling all this protracted canoodling.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words.
No, not at all. He's basically saying any other politician would be gone after something like this.
Political suicide, right.
Exactly. But with Trump, it's like...
It's like it doesn't stick.
Exactly. Like, how is this not a bigger deal? And I think that gets to the heart of Rothkopf's point.
Okay, so what is his point, then?
Well, he's clearly saying that these actions are bad. Like, really bad. And he's seriously concerned about the consequences, especially if Trump gets reelected.
He even brings up other experts, right? Like people who agree with him?
Yeah, he does. He quotes Christopher Steele.
Like the Steele dossier guy?
That's the one. And he claims that some of the stuff Trump had at Mar-a-Lago included, get this, highly classified British Navy info. Seriously. Yeah. And that brings up another issue. Trust. Like, are our allies going to trust us as much after all this?
That's a good point.
Right. They might not want to share intelligence with us anymore, and that puts us at a disadvantage. It's not just about Trump and what he did or didn't do. It affects everything.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly.
So we're not just talking about some abstract risks here. These revelations have real implications.
Absolutely.
And Rothkopf, he's basically saying, wake up, people.
Yeah, he's definitely sounding the alarm. He describes Trump's campaign as this carnival freak show,
Yeah.
and then you have all these serious national security concerns. It's a stark contrast.
Yeah, it is. We're back and still kind of wrapping our heads around all this Trump-Putin stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's like every time you think you've got a handle on it, something else pops up.
It really shows you how complex all this international stuff is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just black and white,
Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking of complex, let's get back to those phone calls for a second. Like, what were they even talking about? Rothkopf seems convinced Trump was giving away intel.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't rule it out, right? Especially considering, well, Trump's history. I mean, this is the same guy who told the Russians about that classified operation in the Oval Office.
Oh, yeah, with those Russian diplomats just casually hanging out.
That's the one. So even if these phone calls seemed innocent on the surface, who knows what was actually said or shared, right?
Right. It's like he just doesn't understand or maybe doesn't care how risky that is.
And then Rothkopf takes it even further, suggesting Putin might be using all this to try to manipulate Trump, even now, to influence this upcoming election.
Hold on, what do you mean?
Like, he's saying Putin could be using disinformation campaigns and all sorts of tactics to try and sway voters in a direction that helps Russia.
And with how powerful those disinformation campaigns can be, especially with social media and everything, that's a scary thought.
Totally. It's like a whole new world of, like, information warfare, right? It's not just
Mhm.
about armies and bombs anymore.
No kidding. It's all about manipulating what people see and believe.
Exactly.
And then you add in those COVID tests that Trump supposedly sent to Putin.
Ugh, don't even get me started on that.
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
just mind-blowing.
That really gets to me, like, it just shows how much personal relationships can affect these big international decisions. And it might not always be for the best. You know what I mean? Like, was that really in the best interest of America?
Right. Think about all those Americans who couldn't get tested when they needed them.
Exactly. It just makes you wonder about priorities.
And yet, none of this seems to be affecting Trump's chances, at least according to the polls.
It's wild, right?
It's like nothing sticks to him.
I think it just goes to show how complicated it all is. Like how people form their opinions, the media, political loyalties, it all plays a role.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if people even trust the news anymore. But here's the thing. As much as Rothkopf criticizes Trump in all this, you can tell he's seriously worried about what it means for the U.S. This isn't just about politics anymore.
Totally. He's talking about our security, our elections, all the things that are important for a functioning democracy.
Exactly.
He's basically saying that these things, whether Trump meant for them to or not, could have huge consequences. And it's not just him saying this.
Right. He quotes other experts, people who've been in intelligence and national security who are saying the same thing.
Exactly. It's serious stuff.
Back again, and I feel like we're finally getting to the heart of it, this whole Trump-Putin saga. We've uncovered so much, these alleged calls, the COVID tests, but there are still so many questions.
And they're not just any questions. They have big implications,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about something as important as national security. Rothkopf seems to think these repeated security breaches, like with the Mar-a-Lago documents, could have consequences that last way beyond Trump.
And it's not just about the documents themselves, is it? It's those British Navy secrets, the potential damage to our relationships with our allies.
Exactly. He paints a picture of a future where allies are hesitant to share intelligence because they don't trust us anymore. And if that happens, well, let's just say it puts the U.S. in a vulnerable position.
So it's not just about Trump's actions, it's the potential dominant effect they could have on America's place in the world.
Exactly. And he's not alone in this,
Right. He mentions other experts, intelligence officials even, who are saying similar things. And we're seeing these concerns play out in the campaign, like that ad with those former defense officials.
Yeah, that one from Kamala's campaign, right?
That's the one. It just shows how seriously some people are taking this. Like, this isn't just political mudslinging.
It's about national security, global stability, the whole 9 yards.
It's like something out of a movie, but it's really happening. Rothkopf paints this picture of Trump, who might be susceptible to foreign influence, running for an office where he would have access to incredibly sensitive information.
And then you have his reactions to all of this. Attacking Woodward, it's like, how can anyone not be worried?
Right. It's like, this is serious stuff.
And that's really what Rothkopf is getting at, I think. We're at a turning point, and the decisions we make now in this election, they have real weight.
So what are we supposed to do with all of this? If even half of what Rothkopf is saying is true, another Trump presidency, well, it's a scary thought.
It is, but it's not about scaring people. It's about being informed. We can't just take Rothkopf's word for it or anyone else's.
Right. Read the article for yourself, look at it from different angles, and most importantly, be an informed voter.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's what it all comes down to. We've got to be engaged. We've got to be informed because this election, it's a big one. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder all of this. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.